The chapter you're in right now, the one that society has been quietly telling you is the beginning of the end, it's actually the most powerful chapter of your life. And by the end of this video, I'm going to prove it to you. I'm Dr. Linda, retired educator and nonprofit leader, and a woman in her 60s who's rebuilt her life more than once. I help women over 50 reinvent their lives and build a meaningful next chapter without burning down everything they've spent decades building. Now, here's something that no one says out loud. We live in a culture that spent billions of dollars, billions, convincing us that youth is the ultimate prize and that relevance has an expiration date, that aging is decline, and that our value somehow decreases with every birthday. And for decades, many of us believed it. We ran on a script that was written for us, but not by us. We were the caretakers, the peacekeepers, the ones who made sure everyone else was okay before we asked if we were okay. I call that acquisition mode, acquiring approval, skills, stability, always giving, building, proving. And when that script begins to expire, as it does for almost every woman around this season of life, it can feel like loss, like invisibility, like the world has quietly moved on without you. But here's what I need you to understand before we go any further. That feeling isn't the end of something. It's actually the beginning of something. And there are 3 specific shifts, biological, psychological, and spiritual, that are happening in you right now. Most women mistake them for decline. They are the exact opposite. And one of those 3 shifts, it changes everything about how you see yourself. I'll tell you which one in just a moment. I call this convergence a sovereign shift. It's the moment, and it's a moment, even if it arrives gradually, when 3 forces align in a way that was never possible when you were younger. Your biology, your psychology, and your spirit, all pointing in the same direction, often for the very first time in your life. And when this happens, you stop wobbling and you stop second guessing and you stop shrinking to fit spaces that were never designed for you. You become grounded in a way that 25-year-olds simply cannot access because it can only be built through time, loss, growth, and the particular kind of wisdom that life earns into you. Let's walk through all 3 shifts, and as I describe each one, I want you to notice where you are in the picture. Let's start with what's happening in your brain. We've all heard story after story. After 50, the brain slows down and memory fades. Processing speed drops, and we walk around half apologizing for forgetting things as if that's the whole picture. But here's what they conveniently leave out. Yes, certain processing speeds can decrease slightly with age. That part is true. But something else increases, something far more powerful: pattern recognition. After 5+ decades of lived experience, of navigating relationships, rebuilding after loss, leading teams, raising families, managing crises, your brain has built something that no textbook can replicate: a 50+ year database. You walk into a room and you read it instantly. You see the power dynamics. You sense the tension. You notice who's performing and who's actually present. You've seen it before in some version, in some form. And your brain doesn't need to analyze from scratch. It knows. And that's not slower. That's efficient. I think about the women I've watched step into rooms throughout my career. Experienced women, seasoned. And the way they moved was different. Not tentative, not performing, just certain. There's a woman I know, a former hospital administrator, who spent 35 years navigating institutional politics, budget crises, staff conflicts. And when she finally stepped out of that system and into consulting work of her own choosing, she said something I've never forgotten. I used to spend the first year of any project figuring out what was really going on. And now I know it in the first meeting. I don't know how to explain it. I just see it. That's the 50+ year database. That's pattern recognition at its most refined. That's biological sovereignty. And it gives you something that no amount of ambition or hustle can manufacture: clarity. clarity about what won't work, about who isn't aligned, about what actually matters. And clarity, real clarity, is the foundation of real confidence. If this shift is something you already started to feel, that quiet knowing, type I see it in the comments because I want you to own that. It's not an accident, it's earned. Now, I want to pause here for just a second because I know where some of you are right now. You're thinking, okay, biology, fine. But the biological piece is just the setup. When do we get to the shift that actually changes how we live? That's shift two. And I need to warn you, this one's going to land a little differently because shift two isn't about your brain. It's about something you've been carrying your entire adult life, something that's quietly shaped every decision you've made, every relationship you've stayed in, and every version of yourself you've agreed to perform. So stay with me. Stage two is the psychological shift. In your 20s, 30s, and 40s, you were psychologically wired, literally wired for belonging. Approval felt like safety, and other people's opinions of you carried enormous weight. Not because you were weak, but because that's how human psychology works at that stage of life. So you overcommitted, you over-explained, you over-apologized, you made yourself smaller, quieter, more digestible, so that everyone around you could be comfortable. And here's what changes around 50. The need for that external validation begins to loosen its grip. Not all at once and not dramatically, but gradually. Something shifts and you stop managing everyone's perception of you and you stop shrinking to be palatable. You start asking a different question. Not do they approve, but does this matter? Not will this make everyone comfortable, but is this true for me? I know this shift personally because a few years ago I faced breast cancer, and there's nothing, and I mean nothing, that sharpens your relationship with time like sitting in a doctor's office and realizing that it's not unlimited. Cancer wasn't just a health battle for me, it was a complete reorientation, a forced reckoning with every question I'd been quietly avoiding. How much of my life had I spent doing what I should do? How many rooms have I made myself smaller in? How many times have I said yes when every part of my being was saying no? When you're confronted with mortality, truly confronted with it, you start curating your life very differently. You stop giving your energy to things that don't deserve it. You stop explaining your boundaries to people who were never going to respect them anyway. And you start saying no, not with guilt, not with elaborate justification, just no. Because here's what I learned in the most unexpected way possible. No is a complete sentence. That is psychological sovereignty, and it's available to every woman in this room, not because something's been taken from you, but because you've finally lived long enough to stop apologizing for who you are. This is the shift that changes how you carry yourself, how you walk into rooms, how you make decisions, and how you spend the rest of the one and only life you have. If this shift is already beginning for you, if you're feeling that loosening, that quiet refusal to keep performing, type I'm done shrinking in the comments. Own it and say it. Now, the third shift, this one's the quietest, and it might be the most transformative of all three because it's not about what you stop doing. It's about what you start becoming. Shift three is a spiritual shift. And when I say spiritual, I'm not talking about religion necessarily. I'm talking about direction, about the deepest organizing question of your life. In the first half of life, most of us chased the markers that said we were winning. The title, the stability, the recognition, the version of success that other people could see and confirm. We were building the resume of a life, and there's nothing wrong with that. It was necessary, and it was the work of that season. But somewhere in this chapter, the question changes. Not what have I achieved, but what will I leave behind? Not what does success look like to others, but what's actually true for me. Not how much can I accumulate, but how much can I contribute. You move from achievement to alignment, and from proving to meaning, and from accumulation to contribution. And when that question reorganizes your life, and your biology, your psychology, and your spirit point in the same direction for the first time, You stop wobbling. That's a sovereign shift. This is your power season. And it doesn't require you to blow up your life to access it. It requires you to get honest with yourself, which after everything you've been through, I believe you're more than ready to do. If shift 3 is landing, if you can feel yourself moving from achievement to alignment, type sovereign in the comments. That word belongs to you now. Before I give you your action step, I want to quickly clear out 2 lies that have been sitting in this room the whole time. Lie number 1 is that it's too late. Actually, women over 50 are one of the fastest growing groups of entrepreneurs in the country. Studies on confidence show that women's self-assurance often peaks, not in their 30s or 40s, but in their 60s. You're not late, you're seasoned, and there's a profound difference. Lie number 2 is that you're becoming invisible. Here's what I actually think about invisibility. When people stop watching you so close, you're free. You're free to experiment without commentary, free to build without an audience, and free to design your life without asking anyone's permission. You're not fading. You're refining. And refinement is what happens right before something becomes extraordinary. Now, what are the signs your power season has already begun? Well, here's what I want you to sit with for a moment. A sovereign shift doesn't announce itself with a headline. It arrives quietly, in small signals, in moments you might have dismissed as irritability or restlessness or just being tired. I want you to see them for what they actually are. You have less patience for nonsense. Things that once would have consumed a week of worry, you're done with them in an afternoon. You find yourself craving solitude, real quiet, not escapism, but restoration. You started questioning commitments you made years ago, not out of carelessness, but because you're finally honest enough to ask, does this still fit who I am? You want authenticity more than applause or approval. And somewhere quietly, maybe so quietly you almost missed it, you've stopped pretending to be smaller than you are. And that's not decline. That's not dysfunction. That's not a problem to be managed. That's awakening. And awakening at any age, in any form, is one of the most powerful things a human being can experience. So which of these signs resonated most for you right now today? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and I want to know where you are. Now, I don't want you to just watch this video and go back to your day unchanged. The sovereign shift isn't something that happens to you. It's something you practice, one honest decision at a time. So here's your challenge. Look at your calendar for next week, or even this week, and find one obligation, one commitment that you're doing purely because you think you should. A coffee date or dinner you've been dreading, a committee you stayed on past when it stopped mattering, a favor you said yes to while every part of you meant no. Find it and cancel it. Not with a 10-paragraph explanation, not with 3 days of guilt. Make the call or send the text and remove it. And then, and this part's important, I want you to just sit with that open space for a moment. Don't immediately feel it. Just notice it. Because that moment, that quiet, slightly guilty, almost electric feeling of choosing yourself is what sovereignty feels like in practice. That single act tells your brain, I'm governing my own time now. And governance is where clarity starts. And clarity is where confidence becomes unshakable. If you're going to do it, type, I'm reclaiming it in the comments. Let me cheer you on, because this is how it begins, not with a dramatic reinvention, with one honest choice. If this is your power season, and it is, then the most important thing you can do right now is understand exactly where you are in it. Because some of you watching this are just beginning to feel the shift. Others are already stepping into what's next. And the path forward looks a little different depending on where you're standing. I created a short next chapter quiz that shows you exactly where you are and what your most important next step should be. It takes about 5 minutes, and the clarity it gives you, worth far more than the 5 minutes. If you haven't already, you can also grab the free Reinvention Roadmap, a practical guide to help you start taking action right away. Both links are in the description below. Start with the quiz and then let the roadmap show you what to do next. Now, I want you to leave with something, because here's what I've noticed after working with women in this season. Understanding a sovereign shift is one thing, but knowing you're ready to move, truly ready, is a different question. And most women hesitate because they're waiting for certainty, for a clear signal, for the moment when everything lines up perfectly and the path is obvious. And that moment rarely arrives the way we imagine it. There are actually 5 specific signs that you're ready for a new chapter, even if everything in you still feels uncertain. And one of those signs, almost every woman misses it completely. Even the women who think they know themselves well. This is exactly what we're covering in the next video. It's called 5 Signs You're Ready for a New Chapter. Most women ignore number 3, and it might be the most practically useful thing I put on this channel. Your power season's not coming. It's already here. You just needed someone to point at it and say, that's what that is. Don't waste your time trying to be who you were in your 20s and 30s. Be who you are now. I'm Dr. Linda. I'll see you in the next video.